The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone to another DevOps.com webinar. Today we have a great topic and an important topic to talk about. You know, security is one of those topics you want to talk about but you don't. But Veritone is joining us today and they have some interesting solutions. You know, we'll talk about AppSec, Deadset Off, and how that impacts security. And the most important thing to learn is how we can do security within the current development process. And that is what is going to be really important today. And one thing I want you to take away from today is Veritone Greenlight. Greenlight is a key word, and you're going to learn more about that in a moment. So let me introduce you to Joan and Vanita of Veritone. They're going to take this a little further and talk in more depth. Joan?
Thank you, Parker. This is Janet Worthington. I'm a senior product.
Sorry. I apologize, Janet. I said Joan. My fault. I apologize.
It's okay. It began with a J. I knew what you meant.
I wasted all that money on college. Go ahead, Janet. I'm sorry.
No worries. And I'm a senior product manager here at Veritone. I manage the Veritone Greenlight product. I'm excited to talk to you guys about it today and how it contributes to Deadset Off. With me is Vanita, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hello, I'm Vanita. I'm Vice President of Engineering and SaaS Operations. I'm very excited to join this webinar. I want to talk about the DevOps team that I have, DevSecOps, and how they actually practice the philosophy, and hopefully along the way give some tips and techniques on how to use these products. Okay, so I manage many teams at Veritone, and one of which is Veritone Greenlight team, a product that practices the DevSecOps philosophy. What we are going to do is look through this methodology with this team as an example. The purpose and intent of the word DevSecOps is built for the mindset that an Agile team is responsible for all aspects from design and development to operations and security. This achieves speed and scale without sacrificing the safety of the code. Traditionally, the system is designed and implemented, and before release, the defects are determined by security staff, a CISO's team maybe. With Agile practices, it is important to inject security and operational details as early as possible in the development cycle. Here are a couple of quotes. Actually, I'm going to read it. It's a good definition of what the books out there or the websites out there will say. DevOps is the practice of operations and development engineers participating together in the entire service lifecycle, from design through the development process to production support. DevOps is also characterized by operations staff using many of the same techniques as developers use for their systems work. Why is application security important for DevOps? And hence we are calling it DevSecOps. We in Veritone see hundreds of thousands of application scans a year. And we also see data from our report on state of software security. Here are some observations, and you can see some of it on the screen as I talk through some of the observations. Much of what is exploited by attackers can be prevented by secure coding. All code has security vulnerabilities. When developers write it, they probably introduce them. Developers need help to understand and learn how to write defensive code. We have heard developers respond to Veritone results. Here is some of the things they say. I didn't know that I needed to address something in a certain way or that it introduced a security threat. Most developers today need help and are not being enabled with education about secure coding or with the safety nets to catch when coding errors inadvertently introduce security bugs. Worse yet, some of these bug categories can be discovered late in the game, sometimes after the code ships. Think about Java deserialization vulnerabilities. They weren't a big deal until someone showed how to exploit them last November. You need to keep thinking about security even after you ship and keep scanning the code for the new introduced issues to keep it safe. For the security side in DevOps, we need to recognize that anything that helps developers turn around fixes in their code faster helps reduce this type of risk. It needs to be done in a systematic way at every step in your software lifecycle. We need to stop being gatekeepers and start being enablers. Let's look at some characteristics and behaviors of a team that follows this methodology. DevOps is a whole new mindset, a new way of working. Value is delivered, value is a keyword here, value is delivered in small increments in a continuous and speedy manner to the customer. The speed in delivery can be achieved by doing automation whenever possible at every step of the way, from concept to production. Computers are always faster than the same work done manually. Even security controls should be automated, and they should be actionable. A typical Agile team would have multiple skill sets who heavily collaborate through all phases. Team members trust each other to know that they can experiment, fail sometimes, and get a quick feedback. End result is happy customers. So let's look at how we, Veritone, implement this methodology in many of our greenfield teams, actually. The Agile engineering team that implements Greenlight, the product that we will demo today, is a cross-functional team. It has developers, QA, IT representatives, and even security knowledge built right within the team. With all skill sets available in one team, design takes into consideration operations and security details, and work flows faster without impediments. There is less inter-team dependencies and handoffs, which the handoffs and dependencies always result in reduced velocity we are trying to avoid. Team plans implementation and release work in short bursts. They also plan for test automation as well as operational monitoring of services and functionality. We have seen quite an evolution in development lifecycle in last 10 years. We started out with monolithic architectures. Team used to use waterfall lifecycle and developed on-prem products. Then came N-tier, app tier, web tier, business logic, and database architecture. And this was around the time when teams started becoming agile. Some hosted services in data centers. Now the DevOps teams are moving to microservices architecture and DevOps methodology. They're using many times public cloud to run their code. Today's DevOps team means non-monolithic modular microservices architecture with 100% automation for functionality and infrastructure that makes it very maintainable for fixes and features. All this automation means the team can deploy as often as needed, down to every hour or even 15 minutes. This is very powerful. You can deliver fixes and features that is valuable to your customer as often as you need. No waiting for service packs or next release next month or even a quarter away. All the infrastructure is implemented as code. What does that mean? Queuing logic for your jobs, auto-scaling of your cloud instances are some of the examples that would be coded. In our case, the teams are using Python to write this code. CI/CD, it means continuous integration and continuous deploy. If you want to be release ready at all times and release as often as needed, embracing this methodology is very important. On our team, here is the process we follow. Development is performed on a separate feature branch. It matches the existing Jira ticket, that's the tool we use, for tracking purposes. Developers run Veritone Greenlight, one of our products featured today, on their code for immediate security feedback as they write code. They can also learn about these issues, more learning part as we talked before, using help available right within their IDE. Development branch can only be altered via merge requests. No direct commits are allowed. Merge requests must pass a successful build. It will run unit tests, smoke tests with it. Merge requests also must have 2 human approvals. All these checks are making sure that the code is secure and well tested. All new code must have automation tests that cover the functional as well as infrastructure changes. Merge to the development branch auto-triggers a build of all artifacts required for a release to development and QA and production environments. We use canary or blue-green deployments. You may have heard either of these terms. What does that mean? Here is an example. If we are currently on development version A and want to move to B, 2 environments are stood up side by side, fully independent of each other. DNS traffic is slowly routed from A to B, monitoring for PagerDuty alerts that we have programmed into our infrastructure code. We also monitor Sumo Logic dashboard for errors in our logs, and we use many other tools. If traffic reaches 100% to B and there are no errors for 15 minutes, A is dismantled. If at any time there is an error alert, traffic is set to 100% back to A, and B is left up while the team can diagnose the issue. As the new features are developed, team designs tasks needed for good operational monitoring. As part of DevOps, monitoring being integrated into the team is very important. So this is the example of how we do it. Performance tests are added or augmented as we write features. Team also maintains code that logs metrics and logging for debugging when issue occurs. Early in the design, team considers questions that in the past would have been addressed at release time or sometimes post-release when production issues were seen. For example, what is my deploy strategy? How often do I want to deploy? Will it require downtime? How do I avoid that downtime? Will it scale and perform as I get more customers or users or more actions by them? What is my instance capacity? Is it efficient? Is it sufficient? Is it cost effective? Making customer experience the best possible in production environment is now part of the design as developers work on it. In operations, the data is saved, errors are monitored, alerts are created automatically, and we use PagerDuty. Team gets rapid feedback about new features and learns, and if errors are found, the fix is deployed fast, instantaneously. Since the features and fixes are deployed in small increments, we can fail quickly and fix with ease. There is a big culture change in the team. There is no skill-based silos. Testing, operations, security testing is everyone's job every day, not for a select few. Team is now very aware of customer issues and customer successes and is accountable and responsible for jumping when the issues happen. This close connection to the customer and feedback loop actually makes team members happier. Let's talk about security considerations through DevOps software lifecycle. Application security is transforming, pushing left to become more integrated earlier into our software development cycle, and moving right to help protect applications in production as other approaches such as web application firewalls, reach the edge of their capabilities and impact. This expands the range of needs application security must address. On the left, developers use security products such as Veritone Greenlight to get early feedback on issues in their IDEs, just like a developer would get compile errors while they build it. They get these security errors right within their system. We also run it with our builds. At sprint boundaries and before release, more complete, larger scans are run. This is where you meet your regulatory and compliance guidelines. You run products like Veritone software composition analysis to understand security threats from third-party components your developers have used. You monitor your runtime environment with dynamic products covering the whole spectrum. I'm going to hand off now to Janet, who will talk about Deadset Off and more about a product that can help you shift left and do security early in software lifecycle.
Great. Thank you, Vanita. So to talk a little bit more about how you would go and integrate security into DevOps, I'd like to first talk a little bit about my background so that you guys know where I'm coming from. So I'm a product manager today at Veritone. I also have experience as a customer-facing services program manager and started off my career in engineering on the quality side. So seeing the movement towards DevOps is exciting as it actually builds quality in from the beginning. From a product management perspective, the opportunity that DevOps affords by allowing us to get product to market faster and the ability to see in real time how our customers are going to react to new features and functionality is a wonderful opportunity. However, it does pose a challenge. Speed, while critical, cannot sacrifice quality, especially when you are a SaaS-based system like Veritone and you have thousands of customers on your systems at any time. Vanita did a very nice job of walking through how our development teams think about Deadset Off and how they introduce quality early in the development lifecycle and build on it throughout. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that Deadset Off journey and how Veritone can help, with specific emphasis on Veritone Greenlight, which is our product that starts you off early in the development lifecycle. So Deadset Off, we've heard Vanita talk about it, but why is it important and matters to developers? Well, we see that DevOps is a culmination of many different movements coming together. It culminates lean practices, Agile, and CI/CD, along with other development practices that over the past 10 years have grown to formulate into the DevSecOps culture that we have today. What I think DevSecOps focuses on, where other methodologies before haven't come through as strongly, is the overall culture and collaboration and how everyone is responsible for the quality of the system. In fact, the DevOps Puppet Lab reports from 2016 yearly goes into how high performance deploy more frequently with shorter lead times, where lead time is from when an idea is created into production. It also talks from year to year about how high-performing teams are able to make changes faster, deploying with fewer failures, and the ability to recover quicker from those failures. And DevOps has always talked about how you bring quality into the full life cycle. This year, in the 2016 Puppet Lab reports, they actually showed how security being introduced throughout the life cycle can actually have a benefit of savings to development teams and for developers themselves. High-performing teams that spend less time fixing security spend less time fixing security issues. This allows developers to spend more time on what they enjoy, looking at new technologies, and building features and functionality for the business. So as part of DevSec Ops and the cultural shift that we are going through, we want to talk a little bit about how teams and organizations can work together to come towards this journey. Vinita shared how our teams are doing it from the perspective of the industry and how folks like Ruan Wilschneck and Martin Fowler talk about it. You can see that increased collaboration is one of the primary foundations of this cultural shift. As Vinita talked about, all roles are part of the success of the product, from development, QA, operations, and security. From the beginning, these teams are working together. There are no silos. There's no handoff between teams, as Vinita pointed out. Anytime you have a handoff, velocity decreases. Vinita talked about how we have autonomous teams, wherein the team has not only the resources to get the work done, but they also have the ability to make decisions without a heavy process in place. A great example of this is how our development team thinks about infrastructure and architecture, which Vinita talked about. Because they are able to make their own decisions and to prototype how they think things should work, we have a very advanced way of looking at our cloud-based systems. In fact, our lead developer likes to say, and reuses a phrase we often hear in DevOps, that you should treat your servers like cattle, not pets. What this has allowed us to do is to deploy quickly and to make changes without having to worry about a special Snowflake server that we are dependent on. From, again, a product management perspective, being able to see a writing of a requirement going from code to production quickly has allowed us to move faster and able to enhance our product, in this particular example, Veritone Greenlight, faster than we've ever been able to before. And shared responsibility has always been important when you talk about Agile development and becomes increasingly scaled when you talk about DevSec Ops. So shared responsibility is across all roles in the organization. It allows us to think about how we should do feedback, shortening the loop between when an issue arises and the people that need to go out and fix it. Long are the days of in QA when something wouldn't work on my test machine and I would go to a developer to hear, works on my machine, don't worry about it. Now what we see is that the minute we have a failure in QA, it is automatically written to the defect tracking system, JIRA. The developer gets the feedback automatically. Similarly, in production, when something goes wrong, because we are now a DevOps operation, when an issue arises in the middle of the night, a ticket is logged immediately in our pager feedback and the developer gets woken up. If you continually get woken up at 4 a.m. every morning, you're definitely going to make fixes so that the next time when deployment happens, that you're going to have higher quality. Automation. Automation has been a cornerstone of CI and CD and is so as well for DevSec Ops. Automation allows us to do the manual tasks without having to worry about using up resources, and it frees us up from manual error. It also allows, more importantly, the teams to focus on what they're doing best, which is delivering business value than doing repetitive items. Quality in. Building quality in, as you can imagine from a QA manager's perspective, is a dream come true. This has started in the techniques that we see in Agile and has moved to CI and CD. Benita talked about how we automate our system deployment all the way from when developers are writing code to when it is checked into the source code repository with unit tests, builds, all running automatically. Before anything goes to production, we automatically spin up a QA infrastructure and run an additional integration into system tests before we, in an automatic fashion, deploy to production. All of this is done without having any manual intervention. And building quality in means that we think not just about functional quality. Now teams think about quality from both the perspective of non-functional tests such as performance and, importantly, security. When we think about the DevOps, we think about the different stages that you have in your software development lifecycle. At every point, there are different tools that integrate into your tool chain. As we introduce quality, the best way to do it is to do it in a fashion where it is part of the overall tool chain and pipeline. Traditional security is usually run towards the end of a software development lifecycle, usually in the system test or pre-production stages before an application goes to production. While this provides the security team with the assurance that they need, it often is run too late in the cycle to be able for teams to react. This leaves security with the decision to either push an application to production with known issues or to hold an application up with known issues to be fixed. So what we like to do at Veritone is to, throughout the development lifecycle, layer in security just like you layer in quality. What I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about is how we've layered in security very early on in the development lifecycle when developers are writing code right in their IDE or integrated development environment. Veritone Greenlight is the product that allows us to do that. What is Veritone Greenlight? Well, Veritone Greenlight provides you instant security feedback while you are writing your code. It also allows you to engage and empower developers early in the software development lifecycle. And it builds upon many of the practices we have been talking about with Deadset Off. Veritone Greenlight is a self-service tool, meaning it is easy to install, easy to use, and easy for developers to understand why an issue was flagged and, most importantly, how to fix it. Greenlight also gives you that real-time feedback that is needed in a Deadset Off lifecycle. Not only is it fast, but the findings are accurate, and the people who are seeing the feedback is no longer a security assurance person at the end of the lifecycle, but a developer who is doing their work immediately in the context of their code. Also, Veritone Greenlight allows you as developers to be continuously learning and improving. By providing you feedback as you're doing your new features and functionality, you are learning secure coding at the speed of DevOps. So who is Veritone Greenlight for? It's for developers as a plugin into your IDE. It provides you fast, frequent security testing early in your life cycle while you're writing your code. It works by looking at a file or a small package, and it is initiated right from the source code, where feedback is delivered back to you in seconds right in your IDE. Veritone Greenlight is a complement to Veritone Static Analysis, where the complete application still needs to be run towards the end of the software development lifecycle in the assurance phase. How does Veritone Greenlight do it better? Well, Veritone is very committed to continuous learning. And so not only do we provide you where there are maybe security flaws in your code, but we also like to let you know when you have done something that is detectable as a best practice in the industry. This positive reinforcement allows you to know the next time you go to do something that you can be assured that you have a high quality of secure code. Veritone Greenlight uses Veritone's existing static engine that has been battle tested over the past 10 years. Our static engine sees thousands of scans every year. And from these scans, we continuously improve and refine our engine. And most importantly, our developers, when we were creating Greenlight, made sure that speed was of the highest importance. And I'll show you in a minute how quickly Greenlight can provide you that feedback. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to pause and move to my Eclipse IDE. So as you can see, I'm in the Eclipse IDE, and I have Veritone Greenlight installed. You can see this from the drop-down menu. Veritone Greenlight is a plugin that is available in the Eclipse Marketplace and can be dragged down to your IDE. In order to use Veritone Greenlight, you do need credentials from Veritone. If you're interested, please reach out to Veritone to learn more about how to get those. Veritone Greenlight works on a file, as I mentioned before. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look at this flaw.java source file. What I'm going to do is pretend that I quickly wrote this file and that I want to get feedback on it from Veritone. What I can do is simply click on the Veritone Greenlight icon button there, and as you can see, it is scanning the source file flaw.java. While I was talking, it returned in 7 seconds and provided me with information that there are 7 potential flaws in this particular file. It gives me the findings based on severity, which allows me to quickly understand where I need to look first. So let me take a look at one of the high issues that it found. This is a SQL injection categorized by CWE 89. CWE stands for Common Weakness Enumeration and is from the MITRE org and an industry standard on how to categorize security issues. Veritone Greenlight is telling me the package information and the file name, but more importantly, the line number where the issue was indicated. Let me click on that to see where it is in my code. Immediately by clicking on it, it brings me to line 32. As you can see on the left here, there's a red marker showing me that there's an issue on this line. I also have this little red squiggly underneath the code to tell me that there is an issue. By hovering over this squiggly, you can see that Veritone is telling me that there's a SQL injection marked here because of how I have constructed my query. It goes on to tell me that an attacker could exploit this issue. In order to avoid this, Veritone Greenlight goes on to suggest that I potentially use parameterized prepared statements in the future for this query. Because I've just written this code, all of the information contextually is in my memory and I can quickly fix this issue. If I want to know more information, I can also select this details button next to the flaw itself. This again provides me with information on why the flaw was detected and then also goes on to provide me with some information on the CWE itself and how recommendations to fix it. At the bottom, I also get a number of industry links that if I want to learn more, I can quickly go to that link to understand where there are other information about this CWE. What I can do now is I can go through the flaws that I care about looking at. So let's say, for instance, I want to understand a little bit more about this DWE 331 insufficient entropy, which was flagged on line 36 of my code. By clicking on it, again, you can see that it pops right to the line. And here I'm using a random number generator that you can see, math.random. So as I hover over math.random, Vericode can tell me what issues I need to look for. I also have this indication on the left here, much like I did above, to tell me that there is an issue on this line. Hovering over it, Vericode is telling me that I'm using a random number generator that does not protect against entropy. What this means is that using this function leaves my application open to a hacker brute forcing and finding out the number. Vericode suggests that instead I consider using the Java Secure Random Number Generator instead. This random number generator is the same functionality as the one that I'm using, so I get the same business logic that I need, but is more secure. So let's say that I want to take Vericode's suggestion. What I'm going to do is, so that you don't have to watch me painfully type, I'm going to comment out this bad code. I've already pre-baked my good code so that, again, you're not watching me just type. What I can do is I can now save this file by going to the Save menu, and Veritone Greenlight is automatically kicked off, as you can see down here. This is part of our auto scan feature. Veritone Greenlight will run every time you save your file. This means that as a developer, you don't have to remember when to run Greenlight. It provides you the information right in the context. Much like you get compile level information, you'll get security level information, and over time, it will help you to learn where you can provide secure coding from the beginning. So now that Veritone Greenlight ran, again, it returned in seconds, this time only identifying 6 issues. My insufficient entropy is not being identified anymore, but more importantly, what I can see here is that I have one best practice. When I go to this tab, what I see is that Veritone Greenlight is telling me that I, in fact, protected against that flaw that it was finding before. So it means that not only am I not causing an issue, but I'm using an industry best practice. Double-clicking on this takes me to line 37, where you can see the little Vericode D for a good job. If I hover over my function, Veritone Greenlight will tell me that I have used an exceptionally strong random number generator. Vericode, in point of fact, is greenlighting my code, telling me that I've done a good job. Next time that I go to use a random number generator, I will know from the beginning to use the Java Secure Random Number Generator. So as I go through with Veritone Greenlight, I can see that flaws are detected quickly, and I can also control my view as a developer. If I don't want to see a particular issue, I can simply ignore the flaw by clicking on this Ignore button, so that the next time I scan, this flaw is hidden from view. Again, this empowers developers to take control of security, focusing on them on what they need to fix quickly and efficiently. This builds on my intrinsic motivation to want to check in high-quality code. Much like I wouldn't want to check in any code that didn't compile or pass unit tests, I don't want to be the one anymore that checks in code that has security vulnerabilities in it. While this view is private to me as a developer, I know that my code will be integrated with other code that will eventually be tested by a static analysis engine. Fixing it now, early on in the life cycle, gives me an opportunity to do it where it is the least least costly for me to fix. I can also, as a developer, scan a small package if I want to, giving me information about how these flaws interact together. Again, I can do this by clicking on the Veritone option, or by doing the menu drop-down, or using the quick keys, Control-6. Again, if I made any changes and hit save, Greenlight would kick off for me. But this time, just to show that what I would do as a developer is to hit the Control-6 keys, which I just did. It tells me that it's, again, scanning my files and packages. As you can see, Veritone Greenlight, again, returns in seconds, finding issues quickly, allowing me to remediate with the information that I find over here, provided to me by Veritone. Veritone Greenlight is one of the very many products that Veritone provides to help development teams and security teams throughout the development lifecycle. Veritone literally follows your code from the time you write it as a developer using Veritone Greenlight to when you go to build and test it using your CI process, where you're looking at the full application prior to deploying into production. Veritone also helps you during the monitoring stages of your software development lifecycle when you are doing your operations with our dynamic analysis and other runtime protection functionality. Veritone Greenlight also looks, while early in the development lifecycle, it is coupled with our software composition analysis that provides you later on in your cycle information about the software assurance of your open source technologies. Coupled with Veritone's e-learning, which provides you information on secure coding best practices, along with quick tutorials to help get you started on secure coding techniques. So next steps that we see would be to understand more about the DevOps transformation and movement. To give you some of the items that we at Veritone use to help us in our Deadset Off transformation is first the Phoenix project that was written by Gene Kim and others to help people understand about a story-like transformation for one business operational team. The next is the DevOps handbooks, which we use frequently to help us understand how to implement DevOps practices. The State of DevOps Puppet Lab report is also a great one to see how high-performing teams are able to translate their work into real-time business benefits. Also, we suggest that you look at the Veritone Secure DevOps Survival Guide, which is a field manual for developers to help get you started on your DevSecOps journey. And finally, if you're interested in Veritone Greenlight and how to get secure coding feedback right in your IDE, please visit the Veritone Greenlight website and download our data sheet. And you can also see a version of our demo right on our veritone.com website. So thank you all for listening to Vanita and I talk about our journey towards DevSecOps and learn a little bit more about our newest product, Veritone Greenlight. This time, we'd like to pass it back to Parker and see if we have any questions on the line.
Hey, Janet, Vanita, great job. It was very informative and very interesting, too. Of course, we have questions. They keep coming in. The first question is, can you provide more insight into how you were able to achieve the automation in order to deploy every 15 minutes?
Okay, I can take that question. So within engineering teams, as you design or write your code, what is very important is immediately writing tests that cover all the code, how it impacts your entire product, which gives you an ability to immediately get a build and trust its results because it has covered all the areas you think it would have affected. It also means when you deploy every 15 minutes, you're not deploying your entire product. Because the development is done in a modular fashion, you're only deploying a part of the whole system. And that's what makes it possible to do it every 15 minutes. So 2, in summary, automation and modular code. That's what makes it possible.
Thanks. Great answer. The next question is, what are some tips for successfully removing silos among testing, ops, and security testing functions?
Great question. This is something that's a cultural shift for all the teams, and so it comes a little bit harder. What here we did, and I think Janet mentioned it in her slides, is autonomy within the team is very important. So as you form your teams, instead of just looking at creating a pod of developers working on a feature or injecting QA into it, now look at what infrastructure change might be needed. Do you need AWS expertise on the team? Do you need DevOps people, IT folks, security experts? And now form your Scrum team with all the skill set in that Scrum team working together daily. This gives you that autonomy and all skills without silos. Now developers don't run into trouble after they have implemented something, because at your stand-up, when they talk about something, IT person might say, hey, but that's not performance efficient. Or somebody else might suggest you a way to implement it in a different way to avoid a functional or a system inefficiency. So building right teams with all skills on one team and everyone being aware of it is the best way to get started.
Right, that's great. That is really, someone wants to know how they can get a trial of Greenlight or get more information, or what's the next step if they're interested.
Thanks, Parker. So yeah, Veritone Greenlight is very easy to get. You can go to the Eclipse Marketplace and search for Veritone, and there is the plugin. You can drag it right to Eclipse. In order to get the credentials that you need to trial Veritone Greenlight, please reach out to Veritone at contact@veritone.com, and one of our representatives will set you up quickly.
All right, great. So just go to the Veritone website and do contact and tell them what you want, and they'll take care of it.
Exactly.
All right, just wanted to make sure they get it right. And here's one I think you already answered. Is Greenlight an add-on to the IDE tools like Eclipse?
Yes, so Greenlight is one of the many Eclipse plugins out there that are available in the Eclipse Marketplace. It's a plugin. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it was actually asked before you went through that part and answered it, but I said we should ask it anyway.
Perfect.
Does it have integration to Jira and bug tracking systems?
That's a great question. The Veritone static analysis, which is run in the integration test phases, has integration to both, can be kicked off by Jenkins and VSTS very easily with plugins that we have there, and all that information is then put back into Jira with a Jira plugin that we have. Veritone Greenlight, because it's so early on in the life cycle, doesn't integrate with Jira, but the rest of the Veritone software life cycle does.
Wow, these are some great questions. We're getting a lot of them that keep pouring in. If we don't get your question answered today, we'll, you will be responded to with your answer at a later date. But let me give you another one. What IDEs are supported?
That's a great question, and I didn't even touch on that, so thank you for asking. So right now, it's the Eclipse IDE is the one that's available out on the marketplace. Vanita's team is working very hard to get the IntelliJ plugin for Java out, and that will be out in Q3. Also, that will be available in the IntelliJ marketplace, as well as a Visual Studio plugin for .NET. Also in the Q3 timeframe. So Vanita's team is actually very busy, heads down right now to get more IDEs and language support available.
That's great. I mean, they just keep coming. What operating systems are supported? Sort of like a string of questions with the theme.
It's a good question. So Eclipse is supported on a number of different operating systems, and our plugin, because it works easily with Eclipse, it is focused on Eclipse 4.4.2, which is their Luna version and above. So as long as you have that Eclipse version or above and the Java 7 client on the laptop or your desktop, you should be fine.
Is it compatible with Visual Studio?
Not yet, but we're working on it. Vanita's team should have it out in the Q3 timeframe.
You see, a lot of these questions are about compatibility, it looks like, and those type of things, and what's supported. And I think you're really answering, say, just give Vanita a little time to get it all done. And then what programming languages does it support?
Right now we're on Java with .NET coming in Q3. Later in the year we'll be supporting JSP, JavaScript, and then Vanita herself and her team are chomping at the bit to support Python, because so much of our infrastructure is actually written in Python code, as is we're finding a lot of our customers have their own infrastructure written in Python. So if people are interested in any of these languages that we're not supporting at this time or IDEs, please reach out to us to let us know what you're interested in. This is very much and helps to inform our roadmap.
Wow, they just keep coming in there. Greenlight seems to have a lot of interest. This seems like the listeners here are just interested in what it integrates with, what it works with, what's in the future. Like this next one, is there a Maven or Gradle plugin?
That's a good question. Right now, there is not a Maven or Gradle plugin. It's something that we've been asked about and something that we're very much thinking about. The way that Eclipse works, you can have Maven plugins. Maven itself isn't as easy in terms of readily exposing their APIs, but it is definitely something we're looking at, and who's ever asking if they could reach out to us, that would be great to understand how they're actually using Maven and Gradle.
Yeah, I mean, they keep coming. There seems to be a lot of interest, and the listeners want to move forward with it. Just got to figure out if it's going to be compatible and work for them. Is there a report that shows the activities of developers using Greenlight, and does it show the trending on number of issues going up or down?
So in Greenlight, we are starting to collect metrics, and what that means is as we have enough statistically important data, we should be able to see that. It takes, because the developers are working pre-built in their own workspace, everything, all that information is anonymous. All we will get is a trend. So absolutely, we absolutely hope to release a report of trending of what are the common things that are found usually, or the common mistakes, so that developers can avoid it.
Okay. I mean, we're just going on. And these are great questions. They're really, you know, everybody obviously listened real close and got it. Is there, can it analyze JavaScript for security issues?
Not at this time, but it's something that we're working on for the end of the year. So our static analysis engine that looks at the complete application, that actually already supports JavaScript, JSP, and a number of the languages that have been asked about. So that is a great place to start. And as we add more support to Greenlight for that earlier in the development lifecycle feedback.
Right. Engine already supports many, many languages that the people on the phone already asked about. All of that is there.
Okay. Now it seems there's interested in how Veritone, you know, and the code fits into DevOps. How is the scanning automated and results sent back to the Jenkins job? They want to know more about the interface with Jenkins and how you work with Jenkins.
So the static analysis engine provides the integration with these build systems because the APIs are exposed. And in the same fashion as Janet was talking about our roadmap, we are looking at exposing some way to use Greenlight so that then you can call the APIs and fail your build if the issues that you were looking for were not found. So usually in DevOps, generally, any tools that you use with Jenkins, even if it was your test automation, you know how it works. That build happens for compile errors, and then it runs the tests, and if the tests come back with an error, build fails. Think of just extension of that, where now you would call as the next step our APIs, and when the results come back, if you do not like what you see back, like high severity flaws, your build will fail. And so it works very seamlessly in your DevOps tools, exactly like your test automation tools.
And I think, and Vanita and Jen, and I want to thank you for a great job. There seems to be a lot of interest, and Vanita, you have your work cut out for you because they're expecting a lot from this product. So basically, when you get the contact form, you want to find out the interest, contact Vanita, because she's got to do it all.
Yes, and I have a team that does it all.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I want to thank you for a great webinar. I think it was very informative, and I think everyone got a lot out of it and enjoyed it. And this is Park H signing off from another DevOps.com webinar. Thank you, everyone, for listening.